Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Art of Creation Homestead. My name is Jason, and it's the time of year where a lot of hatcheries, online hatcheries, have their chickens available for pre-ordering for next year. And while we're not buying chickens this year, I thought it was a really good chance for us to go along and talk about what makes a chicken heat tolerant versus cold tolerant, so you can better choose the right chicken breed for your region. Now, while it may not be important for everybody, because some regions just simply don't have an issue with that, but like if your temperatures can easily get below 10 degrees and can really, like if you can really get some extremely cold weather, like once you in the northern climates of the United States, or you can get some really harsh winter winds that create really low wind chills, you need to start thinking about cold hardiness. And if you're in the Southwest, the desert area, or the deep South, where you can regularly get really hot and humid, or just really stinking hot, maybe start thinking about the heat tolerance, because those two things can really affect your chickens in a negative way if you have the wrong chicken breed. Now, when you're going through trying to figure out, okay, what's going to make that chicken cold hardy or heat tolerant, right? Let's go over a few things. Okay, you're going to want to look at the size of the chicken. Kind of helps. The size of their comb and wattles. Okay, so the little red part on their head, that's their comb, right? And their wattles, the little stuff underneath them. So the size of the comb and wattles, size of their body, and the amount of feathers they have. Those things do kind of matter. Now, here in Southwest Ohio, we kind of got to think about a little of both, because we can get really cold in the winter. It's happened. We've had around minus 20 degree weather before overnight, and we can get really hot in the summer. It can get humid, it can get hot. Heat's not as much of a deal here, but it does get hot. We've had several days in the 90s with higher humidity, so heat indexes of around 100 or so. Humidity can really make it tougher. Like the dry heat, obviously it's still stinking hot. You get to 110 degrees, that's hot, right, no matter what. But humidity can be harder on too, because they start panting a lot and expelling a lot of their moisture through their panting, so breathing in and out through their beaks, and so that kind of hurts them. So here in our area, you kind of got to think of both, maybe a little dual purpose, heat tolerance, cold tolerance. But the northern tier and the extremities deep up north and deep south, kind of got to think about one or the other. So let's talk about heat tolerant first, because that may be the more important of the two, because chickens, their internal body temperatures are already hot, and so heat can honestly probably be more detrimental to their health than the cold. So in heat tolerant, you're looking for a chicken with maybe a taller comb. Okay, so there's the classes of chickens. We'll say one is Mediterranean class, one is continental class. So those are chickens that are typically leaner in size, taller combs, and typically lay white eggs, to be honest with you. So if you want a brown egg layer, typically the most heat tolerant birds lay white eggs, with the exception of two breeds I'm going to talk about. This little girl right here, she's a whiting true blue. Now, she's not laid eggs yet. She's a pullet, but I want you to see something about her. I'm gonna hold her up here, see if she has a very small comb. So that's good for being cold tolerant, okay? But she's also really light, and so she's actually really heat tolerant. Poor girl. Because that whiting true blue, which by the way, you can only get whiting true blues at McMurray Hatchery, so that's obviously where we buy most of our chickens from. We've only bought from them and mypetchicken.com. I prefer McMurray Hatchery. They're both fine, but I like McMurray Hatchery. They give you a lot of good information when you're going to buy your chickens. They're going to tell you what kind of class they are, if they're Mediterranean, continental, a heavy breed like most American breeds are. So they're going to let you know these things, but I want to kind of tell you what to look for in this process. Okay, so that's a whiting true blue. You can only get those there, and they're lightweight. And Tootie's pecking the camera. And so they're lightweight, and they lay blue eggs, right? So we have 3 of them. One of them's 2 years old. She's laid eggs, plenty of eggs, and we have 2 that are pullets, and they haven't laid yet. But they're really heat tolerant and cold tolerant, so they're good for both. Now, a good example of a white egg layer that's going to be really heat tolerant is like a white leghorn. We had some Sicilian buttercups one time. Some places just call them buttercups. Some places call them Sicilian buttercups. We had some buttercups one time. They have a larger buttercup shaped comb, okay, and they're small and they're really heat tolerant. They handled the really cold weather here, okay, but like they're gonna be better off in the heat rather than the cold. And one thing about the cold as well, when you have a bird with a tolerant comb, is that that comb can get frostbite, and that can be really hard on them too. So you kind of got to watch out for that. But what happens with a heat tolerant bird, and why that comb makes them more heat tolerant, is that the comb disperses heat, okay? It expels heat. So there's going to have more heat going into their comb, and then also more heat escaping their comb. So they're actually cooling themselves down with their tall comb. So that's why like a white leghorn, a lake invelder, I think is really good for that. You know, all these birds with tall floppy combs, they can expel that heat from their comb. Now we have other chickens with tall combs. Well summer, we have one well summer with a floppy comb, one well summer with a shorter comb. But we have New Hampshire chickens, which is actually New Hampshire Red, some places call them. Actually, New Hampshire is their proper term. They're actually good for both. They can do both, but they do have a taller comb sometimes. Well, again, we have some with a taller comb, some with a shorter comb. So the ones with the tall comb will handle the cold. You just got to watch it for frostbite. So be aware that some of these chickens are good for both, while thinking about the idea of a chicken with no comb is also good for the cold. Now, if you're looking for just the most extremely cold tolerant chicken you can find, I'm gonna show you what it looks like. She's trying to run from me, so I had to grab her. This is this is a buff Brahma. Okay, you're gonna easily find light Brahmas, dark Brahmas, and buff Brahmas here in America. And just look at her. Her name's Gravy because she's silly, so we just call her Gravy. We got Biscuit and Gravy, and she has pretty much no comb, right? See that? And she's beautiful, by the way. Look at her. She's pretty. She wants to jump down now. You gonna jump? You gonna jump down? Yeah, it's okay. And she's not laid eggs yet, but she's gonna be really big and fluffy and feathers on her feet. It's pretty much the most cold hardy bird you're gonna find in America. Okay, there's some others that are really cold hardy as well, but like Cochins, and I think one's called a Chanticleer, but she's hard to find Chanticleers. But a Brahma, a Brahma of any sort, light, dark, or buff Brahma, they have feathers on their feet, really big fluffy chickens, and they don't have a comb, they have a pea comb. Okay, so therefore they're not losing heat from their comb. They're big birds that just handle the cold. Okay, and also really truly at night, if it's really cold and you have some chickens that aren't as cold tolerant, they'll get up underneath and snuggle up underneath them Brahmas on the roost, and the Brahma's going to help keep them warm. So that kind of helps. But they're not great egg layers necessarily. They're wonderfully friendly chickens, but they're the best cold tolerant chicken you can find. Other examples would be a Wandot. There's several Wandot varieties you can get, and they're better egg layers, okay, than a Brahma is. And they handle the cold probably just as well, to be honest with you. They're big, hardy chickens with a rose comb, so they're not gonna have, they have more of a comb, but it's still real short on their head, and it's not this big single comb that's letting out all the kinds of heat. They're a really good cold hardy chicken as well, and they're also beautiful. Another example of one that works good for both areas is an Easter egger. I have a couple of different looks of an Easter egger in here. I'll show you the one that's probably the best. This is Maggie, and you can see how she has no comb pretty much, and she also has a muff. So she handles the heat and the cold very well. What about you, Tootie? Hey, Maggie. Hey there. See, she's beautiful, ain't she? Yeah. They're fascinated. They're fascinated by the camera, aren't you, girls? You see yourself? You see yourself? Huh? What about you, Tilly? You see yourself? So there you see what Maggie looks like, and she's actually the best winter layer that we have. She'll come back and lay some eggs in December and some in January. Not a crazy amount, but she will lay, which is great. Again, they're really hardy in both. She handles the heat, she handles the cold. Just like the Whiting True Blues, the Easter eggers handle both so well. And they lay green eggs. I mean, honestly, you get a Whiting True Blue, an Easter egger, they're laying blue and green eggs, and they handle the heat and they handle the cold. I recommend those to almost anybody because they're such amazing low maintenance birds. Now some places don't call them Easter eggers, they may call them Americanas, like a McMurray Hatchery. They have one called an Americana, and it's a cross between an Americana and an Americana. Honestly, it is kind of an Easter egger, but it's going to lay green eggs, and it's going to have pretty much like Maggie, no comb, little pea comb, and a muff typically, and they're going to lay green eggs, and they'll be beautifully cold hardy and heat tolerant. My pet chicken has ones called Easter eggers, and there's other variations of these things too. But again, what you're looking for is little to no comb for cold hardy, right? And a lot of big fluffy feathers. Now Brahmas have feathers on their feet. You want to make sure those feathers can stay dry, or at least get dry before they roost at night, because you don't want water on their feet. That's the only thing about a Brahma, is they do have feathered feet. So the feathered feet helps, and it hurts because you don't want their feathers to stay wet. But again, so cold hardy, you want a short comb. Heat tolerant, the most heat tolerant birds really truly have a tall comb because they can disperse that heat or expel that heat out of their combs. That's the biggest deal. Again, size does matter on those chickens with the amount of, you know, body mass and, you know, fat they may have around them, and the amount of feathers they have. So those things do matter. Again, feathers keep you warm, right? Body size keeps you warm. That's one thing to think about. But there are plenty of chickens that can do both as well. So those are just things you need to think about while you're choosing what chicken breed is best for your region. So thank you guys so much for watching. We do appreciate it. My name is Jason. This is Art of Creation Homestead. We love y'all. God bless you and goodbye.